Okay, there are many levels of threat going on in the country right now. To help me go through those, better understand the threat to the homeland, I have retired Colonel Tony Shaffer. Colonel Shaffer, thank you for joining me.
Stephen, always enjoy our conversation. Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you as well. I appreciate you taking time to come on the show. Yesterday was the last 48 hours have been pretty crazy. You've been doing multiple news hits. My phone was blowing up while I was on an airplane with my children. Help my audience understand what is going on. We have this attack on New Year's Eve down in New Orleans. There's some weirdness about that. We then have a cyber truck that blows up outside of the Trump casino or resort there in Las Vegas. Help me understand what's going on here.
So I'd like to frame it from Joe Biden's own FBI director, Christopher Wray's comments, saying, according to him, about, I think it was 6 or 8 months ago, he said, all the indicator lights are blinking red regarding potential terrorist acts. So as always, me being a guy who's actually worked with the FBI, it's like, well, why aren't you doing anything about it? So I guess they weren't doing anything about it because we've had attacks. Just saying. Kind of self-evident. I don't have to get into a lot of philosophical this and that to understand that they said there was a threat, and there was a threat. Who'd have thought, right? I mean, your taxpayer dollars at work, and then they're upset about someone coming into the FBI to fix them. I don't know. And oh, by the way, Steve, just a little bit of fast forwarding before we go all the way through the details. The FBI said, "Hey, there's no terrorist attack here." The first press conference right after the event. Oh, there's no terrorist attack. It's like, oh, okay, it's like a Saturday Night Live skit that's unfunny and out of touch, and that's what this was. So we have seen through a number of vectors a diminution of culture and society. Let me start there. First, we have been essentially groomed, I'll use that word, and I'm using it purposely, groomed to somehow believe that chaos and evil is okay. It's okay. It's just something we have to accept. All the big Democrat cities have seen a rise in crime, but we're told, oh, no, it's really lower. Okay. Governor Hochul, remember this has happened a few days ago. Governor Hochul has this big press conference. Oh, the subways are safer. I've put National Guard members in there to safen them up. And then people burn to death. Seriously. And then LA, Chicago, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Washington. These things are out of control. And the common denominator, they're all blue controlled. And I think one of the reasons we saw a revolt against the Democrats and Kamala Harris, who, by the way, is a California Democrat, all for this soft on crime philosophy, people got fed up. And I think that's, they're tired of it. They see it for what it is, and they're trying to groom us to accept it. Well, I don't think it's going to work. I think people have woken up to understand that this is not, that doesn't have to be this bad. So fast forward past all the rigmarole and all the bad policies to this past week. There's indicators, Stephen, that at this point that this individual was radicalized over a certain amount of time. The guy who did the attack in New Orleans. And there's issues relating to the other vector I wanted to talk about, which is internal threat. Internal threat being that which exists within our own citizenry. By all accounts, this individual made it to staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. So that means he was observed. There was another individual that actually became radicalized and acted in radicalization called Nidal Hassan, Major Hassan, back in 2009. He took a gun and killed a bunch of people in Texas in a deployment facility where, of course, nobody was armed. You couldn't bring guns in because, geez, guns are dangerous. So again, we had a gun-free zone like Nidal Hassan there in New Orleans, even though the state of Louisiana is a constitutional carry state. They somehow, the city of New Orleans got that area designated as some sort of a school zone. I didn't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I didn't know you could have hookers and strippers in a school zone. I didn't know this. What do I know? I don't know these things. But anyway, my point being is that this was a gun-free zone where this guy attacked. The same thing with Nidal Hassan. And the other thing that's common to this is that he apparently went through military training. Both individuals went through military training, became essentially accepted into the military culture, and weren't challenged. That is to say, Nidal Hassan had some really horrific ideas, and he would openly talk about Al Qaeda and some of his beliefs that, hey, they're okay. And actually expanded and made comments on how, it's kind of our fault, America's fault, that they're so bad. Things like that. So I don't know what this individual said or did not say, this new guy that attacked New Orleans, but I think we're going to come to find a statement of the obvious. He went under the radar. Nobody saw him as a threat. And this is where we have to be very careful. One little point I want to add to this. I am the first defender of the Constitution and the First Amendment. I believe people should believe however they want. You want to believe that goats are your higher power? I don't care. If you want to be a Mormon, I love Mormons. I've gone through training with Mormons. If you want to be essentially up in Pennsylvania, be a Quaker, I love everybody. But the denominator, nobody wants to use violence as a method of proselytizing their religion. That's where the line has to be drawn. And so this is one of the issues that I faced over my entire career, and so does the Pentagon even now. How do we look at internal threats? How do we accept the fact that people can have whatever faith they want? Heck, they even support Wiccans as a faith, believe it or not, in DOD. It's like, okay, fine. I don't care. If you want to be a Druid, go be a Druid. I don't care. What do I care? But the issue becomes when that faith departs being essentially something of an internal faith and a firmly held personal belief to basically believing somehow you can use violence against others who don't agree with you. And that's where we don't get it right yet. But that was another thing that failed. Apparently, this individual became radicalized, and that fine line between faith, an eternally held faith, and acting on a violent extremist take on a faith, that's where we did not get this right again. And somehow that guy went under the radar.
This Shamsuddin Jabbar, as you mentioned, loyal to the U.S. military for many years, comes out, becomes a real estate agent, goes through a divorce, and then I guess suddenly gets radicalized into ISIS. Okay, so do you believe then that there is a group behind him that radicalized him into ISIS? Do you believe that he was maybe acting alone? Are we going to be able to figure out his motives for why he enters this area with a truck and possibly a bomb just to inflict a bunch of damage on New Year's Eve?
We don't know yet. And I think we will come to find a great deal of indicators by going back and examining his social media, examining his contacts, examining which mosque he went to. If he went to a mosque, I think I just read something, he went to a mosque. So these things will all have an impact on our understanding, and ultimately what impacted on him, how he became open to the idea of murdering others and sacrificing himself. Those are pretty big issues. I mean, you can be mad at the world, Stephen, but the idea of then deciding, well, all is lost, I'm going to go out with a blaze of glory, and maybe the quickest way to God is by killing others. I don't believe that to be an adequate understanding of faith. And I'll say this, and I don't want to offend your audience, but as much as Christianity and Christ seeks forgiveness and faith relating to having people come to terms with the ability to forgive others and tolerate others. Islam is the exact opposite. If you just look at the Quran, it's a religion, if you follow the Quran, based on essentially using violence as a method of putting forth that faith. I think that's why there are elements of that faith still who are willing to embrace violence. And what happens then? Where is the line, and where did that line get crossed by Jabbar? That I don't know, but I do, like I mentioned, believe we have to go back and look at Nidal Hassan to understand how he, as a U.S. citizen and U.S. Army officer, crossed that line, and he crossed it and murdered more people than this individual is. I'm not going for numbers here. No, I think this guy did more. I'm sorry, Jabbar did more, but the severity of that transition has to be what we look at, and what indicators were there before. And like I said, like you mentioned, Stephen, this guy had, got out of the Army, got into real estate. I've seen some pictures of his trailer. He lived in a trailer. It's not a good or bad. I live in a county where I think the majority of people live in trailers here in this county. So something else happened, and that's what we have to really focus on, is where that psychological nexus is between faith and insanity. And clearly that's where we have to do a lot of work. Okay.
I can't help but notice with the situation with Matthew Livelsberg, the gentleman who blew himself up in a Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Do you feel like there was a covert message there? Elon Musk's and Trump.
Yeah. Look, I think that's why the same guy, not the same guy. That's why that shooter. Remember the shooter, the Vegas shooter, who shot out of the hotel window into the crowd. Nobody ever knew his motivation. Well, I think is the very fact he picked a conservative country western crowd at a time that he did. I think that was a message. The people he picked were essentially God-fearing conservatives. At least I think that's the way I would interpret it. And yeah, I think these guys all have symbology. Even if we find there was no direct link, other than apparently both individuals rented their electric trucks from the same app, which I didn't even know this app exists, which is interesting. To me, that correlation is something we should look at, because I don't believe these things just happen in a vacuum. Anyway, I think the statement of the Elon Musk truck at the Trump Hotel on New Year's Day was all meant to be a message. And again, I don't know if it's related, because these individuals did serve in the Army, not that we know at this point at the same place, but they not at the same time, but they did serve at the same place, some of the same facilities. So we don't know yet if they don't think there's a correlation, but I'm always skeptical until we go through everything. And then the fact that they both picked New Year's Day, well, theoretically, you could have people pick New Year's Day as a symbolic date of doing something to set off the year in a bad way. But yeah, they both used electric trucks for their crimes. One being a Ford Lightning, that electric truck that Ford has, and then one being the the Musk Tesla truck. Yeah, and those things look weird just to begin with, anyway. Just saying, but I think that's clearly, and I don't know clearly the Trump Hotel was a target to mean Trump, to symbolically hit Trump, even though you couldn't get close to Trump. So yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears. A couple shows ago, you and I talked about how Christopher Wray and Alejandro Mayorkas refused to go before Congress before the end of the year. They basically said, listen, our time is winding down. We don't want to waste it being in front of Congress. Now, Senator Josh Hawley is demanding that they come in and give immediate updates on what is going on with this deadly attack on American soil. Do you think that they will show up? Are they going to have answers?
They're not going to show up. No, there's no way. No way. They're done. And by the way, they've done their job. And their job is not to support and protect and defend the American people. Their job is to invoke and support the policies of the Biden administration. I don't even say Joe Biden, because I don't think Joe Biden understands what policies they're trying to implement. This was all about, Stephen, I'm just going to put together the dots here. the whole concept of this administration, the current administration, the Biden administration, was to foster the concepts of a view of a global utopianism, one world government. It's World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. Their philosophy going back, and I'll say it, to Carter, Jimmy Carter, Zbigniew Brzezinski, the basic concepts that we have seen play out before us in the Biden White House actually had a lot of its origins in the Carter years, believe it or not. People need to go back and study this. A lot of the concepts of Zbigniew Brzezinski, Mika Brzezinski, just saying, that's his daughter. I don't think she's too far from the tree of her dad's philosophy. I'm just saying that a lot of the concepts were started then, and they were continued throughout Democrat administrations. So everything we see playing out now has to do with the idea that Obama came in with, that we, the United States, we need to be taken down a couple of notches, that we have no reason to believe we're the best country on earth. They didn't believe in American exceptionalism. By the way, their definition of American exceptionalism, not the real one. The real definition of American exceptionalism, that people like Elon Musk can come here as a South African and become an American and do extraordinary things. You have the freedom to fail. You have the freedom to succeed. That's American exceptionalism. They don't get it. The left doesn't get it. It's like, no. We're not better than everybody else. No, dude, that's not what they mean. They mean anybody can be an American and do those extraordinary things. That's what's exceptional. Anyway, I digress. What we've seen is this very severe continuation of concepts established by the Democrats in the 70s with their logical conclusion. Remember, during Carter, we had lack of energy. They were trying to say, look, I got a degree in environmental studies back there, Stephen. They were teaching peak oil. I don't know, for those who follow me or follow you, understand what peak oil is. Peak oil was this wackadoodle concept that we're about to run out of oil. We're going to have to run around like Fred Flintstone, paddling cars with our feet. And obviously it didn't happen. But that's what the oil shortages were of the 70s, saying, we have to start curtailing down. We got to have governments in charge of energy. That all started in the 70s. Well, they've expanded the concepts using the New Green Deal or the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the New Green Deal, just basically with a new shellac on it. They've done this for decades. That's why we've seen the most severe application of the concepts with this administration, with the Biden administration. They've attempted to convince people that somehow we, mankind, are responsible for the global weather trends. It's not true. The basic fact is you cannot study climate without looking at 6,000-year blocks of time, Stephen. And beyond that, you can't understand it. It's weather. There are trends and events which are not actually extraordinary to the 6,000-year cycle, but we don't know that because we've not been here 6,000 years. But don't let science get in the way of politicians using concepts to implement policies to subordinate mankind to governance. That's what's going on. So everything we've seen over this administration, I know this is a long way to get to answer your question, but bear with me for a second. That's why you've seen a severe arc of government insinuation, of taxation, of all these things they're trying to do to make sure that the government becomes that which tells you what you can have regarding your heater. Or did you know, Stephen, you shouldn't have a gas stove because, reasons. That's why you see this stuff. It's not random. It's done in such a way to present a path forward to Marxist concepts by government to take control of things. That's what's going on. So if you look at what they've done as that is their policy backdrop, Mayorkas, Ray are an extension of that within national security. That is to say, do they acknowledge that things are bad? Oh, yeah, of course. As I said, Christopher Wray, yeah, he said everything's blinking red. Well, why didn't you do anything about it? Oh, because it's not my job. Because we want the chaos. That's my point. They want the chaos. They want all of this disorder and chaos because it then helps them justify more government, more control. Well, if you just let us have social media, we'll be able to get in there and fix things. No, This is not about defending the republic or protecting the interest of individuals or groups. It's all about pushing the idea that a government organization, a permanent bureaucracy, and this is one of those things too. I always tell people, whenever they talk about democracy, replace that word with bureaucracy. They're always trying to protect the Leviathan of the federal bureaucracy, not the interest of individuals or the Constitution. It is what it is. So I know this is a long answer to your question, but Christopher Wray, Mayorkas, all these guys knew exactly what they were doing. They were implementing the policies they were told to with actually quite extraordinary fidelity to the concepts of their party, of the left. But those concepts had nothing to do with protecting the American people or doing the hard work of trying to figure out what threats are and countering those threats. Trust me, if someone was actually trying to work to counter the threats, we would not be having this conversation right now about Jabbar and what happened in New Orleans. Yeah,
it seems the FBI's still trying to track down grandmas that went into the
exactly
4 years ago.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, wait a minute, 1,000 people with ISIS ties have snuck across the border. We don't know where they are.
Exactly.
Colonel McGregor posted this morning that they just found a house in Virginia with over 150 homemade bombs.
Yep.
But we got to get those grandmas that went into the Capitol. It's just like they're spending major time on minor things and minor time on major things, and they're putting the country at risk.
Well, let me go back to the Nidal Hassan and Jabbar issue regarding the internal threat. I advised the Pentagon in 2021, 2022, back when Lloyd Austin invoked his white supremacist search. Oh boy, we're going to find those white supremacists, whether they're there or not, and they weren't. So I dealt with people. I don't want to mention specific names or organizations. Just leave it at the Army and Marine Corps. We'll leave it there. Called me in and said, look, we know that the thing we're being asked to do is not about finding bad guys. It's about trying to convince us, Army and Marine Corps security, to start looking at people's social media. And we don't think it's proper. It's like, no, it's not proper. You shouldn't be doing that. I mean, unless someone is exhibiting signs of radicalization, which most people aren't. I mean, look, I have some pretty spicy takes on things on X. People know that. I'm not a radical, other than I'm a radical threat to the individuals in power because I think they exceed their authority half the time. That's my right. They wanted to take the individual right of dissent and criminalize it, Stephen. That's what they were trying to do. That's why they had that white supremacist look. Oh, all these people are in the ranks. No, they're not. And by doing that, they diverted resources from looking at real threats. Just like the FBI is doing, like you said, about going after grandma for walking around the Capitol on January 6th. Are those people threats? No. What should they be tracked down? Not really. I mean, if you just walked around the Capitol and maybe, just were let in by a guard, so what? And I've known people who weren't there who have been prosecuted because they said, nasty things about the 6th of January. Think about that. Even speech has been criminalized. So that's what they've done. It's not about looking for threats, as my point I was trying to make in our last part of our conversation. This is about diverting resources from a legitimate use to target, to establish an understanding and target threats, to using those resources to essentially establish control and surveillance of individual citizens. That's what happened. That's what they're doing. And that's why this is so bad. And that's why they're not going to show up to testify, Stephen, because what we're talking about, they know, and they know they have nothing to say that would help show them in a good light.
Yeah. Just staying on the January 6th topic, I've been under the belief that President Biden was going to maybe preemptively pardon everybody that was on the J6 committee. And he still may. There's time between now and January 20.
Yeah.
But I saw today trending on Twitter that he wants to give like a Medal of Honor to Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson.
President's Citizens Award, yes. That's right.
Like why should they get an award? They literally didn't prove anything, and they also didn't sway anyone's opinion.
Because they committed to and were successful in doing the work of the party. This is not about them serving the American people. This is about doing the work of the now extreme Democrat Party. Stephen, why do you think RFK and Tulsi Gabbard left the party? Heck, one of the people I hope actually wakes up and leaves the party is Marianne Williamson. I don't agree with everything she says. She's a nice lady. I've met her. And she believes in God and faith. She wrote a book called Return to Love. I don't know what the heck she's doing with those knuckleheads. They all hate her, and they talk about hating her. So anybody who doesn't go along with the party, the basic concepts, they will make fun of or dismiss. So at this point, I think it's abundantly clear that anybody who is still part of that party is in for this extreme view of Democrat process procedures. And I think it's all Marxist. So again, I'm not sure if this is the answer you're looking for, but I do believe that these people who are doing these things regarding democracy is all about protecting the bureaucracy, which has become an extension of the Democrat philosophy. These individuals, Benny Thompson, and I'm sorry, Liz Cheney's no Republican I know would be expressing in terms as she has so severe, the idea that we must, as an American people, think a certain way or not accept people who we want to vote into office, because that's what she was trying to do as part of the January 6th thing, is to basically contaminate Trump as a candidate by saying that he directed the most severe attack on our democracy ever, which we all know was a complete fiction. And by doing that, she has become a full supporter of the Marxist left. And that's what they want to award. Wow.
I can't believe that they're going to waste a Medal of Honor on them.
No, Medal Presidential Citizens Award. So you get it's actually a very nice looking award. It's if you Google it, and apparently if you get the Democrat version, you get a free trip to Bora Bora, where there's no ability to if you're indicted to call you back. So it's you get a ticket and an award. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding about the ticket, but I'd be thinking about it if I were them. Just saying.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me if they leave the country around January 20th. Okay, yeah. Final question. With your extensive military CIA background, what are your thoughts on Trump's nomination of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense? As more time goes by, all of the steam and energy seems to be going out of all the reasons that he should be blocked. What are your thoughts on him? Would he do a good job of leading the Pentagon and keeping America out of these foreign wars?
So full disclosure, I know Pete and I are friends, so just take my comments with that understanding that Pete is someone I like a lot because we're friends. Just saying. Being as objective as possible, relating to both, knowing President Trump and his thinking, knowing Pete and his philosophy, I think a lot of the things we've been talking about will be front and center to what Pete Hegseth will have to do with the Pentagon. There's been a philosophy of failure that has been supported and maintained by all leadership coming into the Pentagon. Lloyd Austin, I know Lloyd Austin. That guy he's the ultimate expression of DEI. Just saying. I've said this in other interviews. I've been in the room with Austin as a brigadier general. I saw him just recently at the Army-Navy game. I saw John Kirby there too, but that's another story. I don't want to get into that. So I know these people. This is not like something, I have an opinion based on what I've read. No, I know these people. And so I can tell you that Pete Hegseth coming in to replace Lloyd Austin is literally a 180. Pete will be focused on how to return a number of things to the Pentagon. First off, lethality. If you're going to actually go to war, Stephen, don't you think you ought to want to win? I would think that'd be one of the first things you think about. Well, Lloyd Austin, no. It's what will the optic be of whatever we do? And if you watch his testimony, Matt Gaetz and others have gone after him appropriately and pointed out that, you're not trying to actually win. You're doing things to protect the bureaucracy and the image of the White House, not win wars. So that's going to change. And by the way, I think Pete's going to be given the freedom by President Trump to do that very thing, to return winning to the lexicon of the Pentagon's objectives and policies. Number two, we talked about woke issues a little bit. Nidal Hassan, this Jabbar guy. I don't know this, Stephen, but I'm pretty sure people kind of saw that Jabbar was being radicalized and were afraid of saying anything because, the moment you say something, your career may be over because, oh my God, you can't criticize people's religions. And I've already told you my view of distinguishing between religion and faith and the potential to act on an extreme view where violence is acceptable to that faith. There's a difference with a distinction. And that distinction has been something that people have been afraid to comment on. And I think that's going to change. We're going to return sanity to the policies regarding woke, regarding individuals being treated based on respect of merit, not on the skin color or whatever grievance they have, or the idea we have to be nice to people because, we just don't want to be unkind. Let me tell you, Stephen, people are unkind in other nations. There's a lot of severe treatment of individuals who are in these other nations, and they could care less about how nice we are to our people in the military. The job of the military, let me be blunt, is to kill people, break things, or hold domains or territory. That's it. And I think that those mission objectives, the focus on those things to protect and defend the equities of the American people are going to be front and center. Pete gets that. I think that's why President Trump picked him. And another factor that he will not have is he will not have any affinity or affiliation with large defense corporations. One of the criticisms McGregor and I have had is that it's like a revolving door. You get up there to be a 4-star general. Next thing you know, you're over there at Lockheed Martin or Boeing and getting a large 5 or 6 figure job. I think 6 figures, maybe 6 or 7 figure job, basically doing what you did before to make sure that door to DOD stays open. And Tony Zinni told me this, by the way. This is not fiction. I know this. Tony Zinni told me when he was chairman of the board of BAE, British Aerospace, his job was to grow the company 7% per year, no matter what. That's it. That's it. That's your job. That's what you need to do. So Pete Hegseth, he's not worried. And by the way, neither am I, because I'm never going to be working for these people either at this point after trashing him constantly. But McGregor says it. I say it. You cannot have any concern about corporate America other than trying to figure out what policies will work regarding the new technologies and acquisition strategies, which will provide you the most lethal military and the most lethal tools available to win a war. We don't do that now. And yet we have the most bloated, most expensive Department of Defense ever with layers of bureaucracy. The Navy right now has more admirals than ships. Think about that. It's like I'd like to see an admiral, go out and actually do something to earn his keep, not sit back and drink lattes and Starbucks at Portsmouth. Just saying. Not that I've seen that. But anyway, I digress. My point being is that we need to get those things fixed, and Pete Hegseth is the guy that's going to do it. And then I've heard this criticism on the left. Oh, he's not going to be loyal to the institution. No, it's not in the job description. My job is not to manage your perception of me or the feelings you might have about me telling you to go do your job. Just say it. So I think Pete's going to be just fine.
Okay. All right. I said that was my final question, but I just saw some breaking news that came through. Many members of the U.S. Senate are now urging the expedited confirmation of Trump's national security team in order to keep America safe. Do you think that will actually, it sounds like common sense to me, but do you think it will actually happen?
It should, but I don't think it will because the people who control all of that right now are still Democrats. So I think, people roll in, get their oath taken. Republicans take over Senate and House, then I think there's a better chance of that. And yeah, I think that it should be done. Look, I would do the extraordinary thing of appointing people. I'd actually ask the Senate to go in recess. Go in recess for a week. Let me appoint a bunch of people to get in there and go to work immediately. That's what I would do. Because in my argument would be, we don't have time. If you want to actually start changing these things on the 20th of January, you should have people who are either cleared by the fact they've cleared confirmation, or to put a Senate into recess so you can appoint a bunch of people on the 20th and 21st to get things rolling. Because things aren't going to get any better, Stephen, under the current leadership. It's just not going to happen.
I learned in the last year that this saying, long live the king, came from the fact that in between coronations, there was so much violence and robbing and raping and all of this that people literally prayed that the king would live longer so that they could have longer periods of peace. But you're saying you don't think Democrats want that. They want to delay this. They want to keep that window open. I mean, look at going into the week of certifying the election. We're having all kinds of chaos. And General Michael Flynn said, don't be surprised if there's not more chaos between now and January 20.
I agree with Mike. Mike and our friends, I think he's right. Look, let me just use one of the recent examples that everybody is aware of. They're trying to send another $6 billion to Ukraine as we speak. 6 point something. 3.4 of that is in your area, economic development, economic support from Janet Yellen. Really? What would happen if we put $2 billion into North Carolina to help the people in Asheville and environs come back from the hurricane? Huh? What happened to that? Why don't we economically support U.S. citizens? And oh, by the way, at the same time they're doing this stuff with Ukraine, trying to help the Ukrainian people, they're selling off border wall. Right now, as you know, there was a suit by the Trump folks saying, don't sell off the border wall stuff. A federal judge said, yeah, we agree. That's what they were trying to do. But their excuse was, oh, well, it's just excess material. We're trying to save money. No, you're not. No, you're not. Come on. So this, just if you look at what they do, Stephen, I don't know what your mom told you when you were, before you got married. Look at people's actions, not what they say. Always look at the actions. And in this case, look at the actions. And yes, they're trying to do everything they can to upend, delay, and otherwise create chaos for the inbound team. So if I were Trump, I would use every tool available to get my team ready to go and in there as soon as possible.
Wow. Unbelievable. Well, hopefully they can, and the country can be safe. We can start pulling out of these foreign wars and make America first and America great again. Colonel Schaefer, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.